There's one thing to see these images on your screen, and it's quite another thing to actually see all this devastation in person. And for the first time, we know that the president is here in Kerrville taking a look at all the damage for himself, also speaking with leaders who have seen this up front each and every day. As we know, this has been a 24/7 operation since a week ago. Today, we marked 1 week since those deadly, catastrophic floods hit the Hill Country area. A majority of the deaths, the people who died, are in Kerr County. We know that at least 96 people have been confirmed dead in Kerr County, 161 people still missing in this county.
You know what strikes me looking at this live picture of the president, first lady, the governor, looks like Kerr County Sheriff Larry Latha. When they zoomed out, when our photographer zoomed out a moment ago, you see how big a fire truck is. We know how large they are. Look how tall the debris pile stands over top of that. You mentioned that it is different seeing it in person versus seeing it on camera. We've been doing our best to tell the story of what's happened here, but it is hard to convey just the massive amount of debris piles and all the things that go along with that. Pieces of people's homes and their lives tied up in all of that mangled just wreckage at this point. And I think that this kind of gives a good idea of just how tall some of those piles are and the task that first responders and so many volunteers that have showed up here to help, the task that they have before them. And Stephanie, you and I were talking about this just a few moments before we got on here, that this is a day in and day out effort. No one has taken breaks. I mean, we are still trying to reunite families with their loved ones so that they can know where they are. Over 160 people still missing. And really somebody there off to the right that you see, Nim Kidd, the head of the Texas Division of Emergency Management, has been at the forefront of this. He responds to any kind of disaster across the state, and he has been part of the charge out here in the last 7 days.
So we know that as we look at the president right there, we know that there's also the relief and recovery effort that's underway. Search crews are looking through an 80-mile area. And if you can imagine, it's hard to imagine. We've been here out in the heat, but they have been out there just with all of that debris, all of that dust, these really hot conditions, and they haven't complained. They say that they're in it for the long haul to help out the people here of Hill Country who have been so affected. Also, visitors who were here when we were struck by those floods last week. We know that the governor has said 2,100 people across 20 state agencies are here right now to help with that relief, with that recovery. We don't know who else President Trump is going to speak with, but we do know that in about an hour or so, he is expected to sit or join a roundtable discussion so that he could learn more about exactly what it is that the people of Kerr County and across all the different counties in Hill Country that have been affected by this flood need right now. And we do know that there is a lot of need right now.
Yeah, where we're standing on Waterfront Drive here right off of the Guadalupe River, so many of these homes are no more. Some are completely gone, swept off their foundations. There are pieces of cardboard spray painted with FEMA. We need help. Just asking for any and all resources to be brought to this area. And, Stephanie, it was almost exactly a week ago. It was 2 o'clock in the afternoon that we took over last Friday for our morning team, who had been covering this since 5 o'clock last Friday morning when all of this just terror unfolded here in the Hill Country. And it has been an incredibly long and heartbreaking and horrific week for so many of these families. But at the same time, just personally speaking, I can't believe that it has been a week, because it just seems like not that much time could have passed, because how could any of this be real? How could this have happened in the Texas Hill Country, the effects of which are being felt in San Antonio, in Houston, in Dallas, in Austin? We know other areas dealing with their own flooding that they have endured as well. But we were promised, the people of the Hill Country were promised that state, local, federal resources were coming their way. And this is, another sign of that, another step in that process, with the president part of the many boots that are here on the ground in Kerrville.
And, you know, throughout the week, people in Kerrville have been anticipating the president's visit. They knew that he was coming because it's something that he promised he would do last weekend. But they have been anticipating the president's visit. And even though there's so much fatigue everywhere you go here in Kerrville, people mentally, physically, even spiritually fatigued right now, there is something about seeing the commander-in-chief of the United States here on the ground, looking at everything. It gives people hope that more help is coming, even as we continue to learn more about the devastation that's taken place, because as we know, 166 people overall in Texas are still missing as a result of this flooding, 161 of them in Kerr County. But, you know, the people here have been comforted by what they have seen in the last week with all of the volunteers. Earlier I mentioned something like 2,100 personnel, people from 20 different state agencies are here to help with the search, the recovery, the relief efforts and all that. But that's separate from all of the volunteers, Myra, that are here on the ground day after day searching, helping with different agencies in the search. Right here where we are right now, we've been speaking with people from a religious organization. 15 men have been here since Monday, and they've just been focusing because it's such a big task on one property, and they've been trying to clear out the debris for one homeowner. And when I asked him, I said, how long can you guys be here? He said, we're going to be here as long as it takes.
Yeah, and you know that they're not the only group, like you mentioned, and a lot of, because of, you know, just this area being inundated by people wanting to do something. You know, I believe our Avery Everett talked to a pizza shop owner in this area who said that when all the flooding happened, you know, their business wasn't directly affected. They were going to tell everybody to stay home, but they couldn't sit still. They had to get up and do. So they have been just making pizzas and passing them out for free to anybody who needs them. And so many of these groups that are here, they have really inundated this area in the best way possible, but that has led to a lot of road closures, especially getting into the hardest hit areas of Hunt, not far from Ingram. So that group that you mentioned, that religious group out of Texarkana, that group of guys said we couldn't get into where we thought we were headed, so we found some other place, because finding a place that needs help is not hard right now. And just people who are doing their best to gut their houses, the ones that are still standing. You know, you think about all of just the, you know, the debris that we see along the riverbanks aside, but everything that's having to be pulled out of these homes that is now worthless. It can't be salvaged. It's full of water. It's full of chemicals. Just everything in a house ended up in this water. So it is a tremendous task, and it's one that, you know, like you said, that we're going to need federal support. We're going to need support from just the mom and pop organizations that have loaded up a trailer, showed up and said, how can I help?
It's unclear when you talk about federal support specifically, because we have seen local, county and state support coming in, of course, with all of the resources, but we still don't know exactly how much federal money is going to be specifically earmarked for the devastation from this flood. And that may be that they haven't given out those numbers by design, because right now, obviously, they've been focused on the search and the recovery. People are the priority right now. Also, we don't really have an idea as to how many structures were damaged. I mean, we're seeing it every single day. And Myra, you know this. Every time you get up close and you look at some of these homes, you know, you see couches. I mean, you could just imagine and picture families more than a week ago were just sitting there, enjoying themselves and enjoying the beautiful scenery that is the hill country. And now those homes are just beyond repair. And they don't know when they're going to be able to come back. Yeah,
there was just over here, when I was here on Saturday, there was a stack of cinder blocks that came out of some house, some garage, and there was 2 piles of what looked like decades-old family photos that were just stacked on top of those cinder blocks, and they were covered in mud. And it was something that, you know, obviously meant a lot to somebody, something that someone was trying to save. And you're right, people are at the center of this. And the president's visit is incredibly significant. Of course, I just keep thinking about the at least 161 families that don't know where their loved ones are. Some of them don't know where their children are. And that is something that I think is just, it's chilling for me to talk about. It is chilling for people to be those boots on the ground and know when they're digging through those piles, they're looking for someone's child. They're looking for someone's loved one. And I don't think we can commend those folks enough, whether they are official first responders or somebody who just showed up and said, what can I do?
Doing the difficult work there. A moment ago, if you were just looking, because we're on a split screen right now, we saw members from Texas Task Force 1. Obviously, they've also been here, just one of the many groups of people that have been helping in this effort. And our camera there is, or I believe that's a camera from ABC. You're just kind of seeing a little bit more of the damage. I mean, you just said it's everywhere you look. And the thing is, it also isn't in some places that you look, Myra, because where we are right now, obviously, you see all the damage with these homes, but just across the street, you see some homes that are still intact. But a lot of those homeowners are still seeing damage in their home. I mean, there's a lot of mud that is blocking their foundation right now. I actually, about 2 hours ago, I went inside one of those homes and the homeowner showed me, and he just lifted up. He was just showing me like a manhole, and the smell is already there, and that's so much damage. And of course, you don't know what is there with all of that mud because of the temperatures and because of how long it's been. You don't know. It's getting hard. And so he's saying that he called FEMA. He's trying to get help to get that mud out of his foundation because he's not sure how it's going to affect the structure of his home.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just a lot of questions about recovery in addition to the effort to recover people. And those are questions that are not going to be answered anytime soon, I think, in terms of, yes, we hope to get some answers on what kind of financial help and things of that nature might be coming, but it is going to be a very long time, and every bit of help is needed. You can see Senator Ted Cruz there, Congressman Tony Gonzalez, who serves our area, also standing there as well. This is expected to be some kind of a roundtable where those directly involved in this disaster, as well as obviously elected leaders, are coming together to hopefully talk about what is needed and get that to the people of the Hill Country as fast as possible.
So right there, you mentioned that you saw Senator Ted Cruz. He's a junior senator of Texas. We are also expecting to see Senator John Cornyn, the senior senator from Texas. He's also expected to be there. We also know that he was in Kerrville last weekend when the Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem was here. You can only imagine that when those leaders go back and talk to the president, I can't even imagine, because also the leaders that are here, they're seeing a lot of this up close. To a certain extent, the media has been kept sort of at arm's length because, we want to be respectful because there's a job to be done here. But we have no idea exactly what those leaders are hearing directly from the first responders. But Steve Spriester was on last night, and he was saying that he walked by a group of searchers who had found a body, and they put a tarp over that body, and there were just a group of them, maybe 5 or 6 crew members, and they just stood in silence just to honor that person.
And we know, we saw too, it's tough for everybody. We saw too that Edgewood ISD police officers were out here, and they said, what can we do to help? They were digging in an area of debris beyond our camera shot. What you see behind Stephania and I here is mostly homes. That's the wreckage of homes. That's things that have come out of houses. That's pieces of houses. But beyond that, really kind of down at the bottom of a bridge area, that is where crews were searching and wondering if they were going to find someone who is missing. And I said this earlier, nobody wants the death toll to rise. Nobody wants that. But at the same time, when you see that 161 people are still missing, you want an answer for those families. And being out here and watching crews just sweat it out, truly blood, sweat, and tears to try to get those answers for families. I mean, that is the effort. That is the story that I want to make sure we also focus on as well.
We've also been seeing the best of humanity with searchers and so many people. I mean, I don't even think there's a total count on the number of people who have come here to volunteers, just apart from officers and other local officials. But we have been speaking so much to searchers, and it's important to highlight the work that they're doing. And I want to send things. I want you to take a look at a story that Zaria Oates, our reporter, filed. I want you to take a look because she's been speaking to searchers. Let's listen to what they told her.
161 people are still missing in Kerr County.
We can't do this alone. We don't have enough local resources.
Searches are being led by law enforcement, first responders, military personnel, and volunteers. This medical chopper touched down in Ingram Thursday afternoon, one of many going back and forth for search, rescue, and recovery missions. So I caught a ride with the West Texas Sheriff to get a closer look at what's been done so far and what's still to come.
There's a lot of debris, a lot of trees, you can see the devastation there.
Sheriff Rusty Stewart with the Andrews County Sheriff's Department has spent 40 years helping out neighboring communities when disasters hit. The road's broken up here.
Yeah, this used to be a road. Walk on top and you're 15 feet in the air and it's 50 yards across, and we start digging into it and we find an RV, or we'll find a car. And you don't see them until it's there. We had one vehicle recovery day before yesterday downstream, and what they did was they dammed up the river in one area to kind of get it dried up. When the water went down, we found 3 cars in the water down there.
Underwater?
Underwater.
And you couldn't see them till you got there?
No, not till we drained the river down.
A tiring effort spanning just 1 week so far, and many more to come. It's included countless volunteers, including Audra Miller, a San Antonian and wife of a former firefighter. For decades, she's also helped communities in need.
We helped with Katrina, we helped with Harvey.
They work with the Crisis Cleanup Organization.
It connects families that need anything. They need their houses mucked out, they need trees taken down. If they get on crisiscleanup.org and create a ticket, we connect them with organizations that have signed up that will come out and do all that work for them for free.
It does tug on your heartstrings a little bit. We find clothing, and when you see little kids' clothing, and it's just the families, I guess, that are still, they have loved ones that are missing. That's what gets you, because we're out here, we're trying to help them out. We're either trying to find their loved ones or at least give them closure.
You know, it's interesting. I was watching our coverage this morning, and Devin Karp was on, and he had spoken with a volunteer who is trained in things like this, search and rescue operations. And he had said, no matter how hard you train, you are never prepared for this. You're never prepared to deal with something of this magnitude. So right now we're getting a live look at Senator Ted Cruz. We know that he is one of the few leaders from that's here in Kerrville today, as the president and First Lady Melania Trump are here in Kerrville to take a look at the devastation and also speak with local officials about the resources that they need right now.
I think everybody is just in the aftermath of this holding their circle extra close. I know that we've been doing that as just colleagues and people doing our best to tell the stories of what has happened to our neighbors in the Hill Country. I think it was just it was telling to me that when I was first out here Saturday, I met with a couple neighbors who live on this very street, and we saw them again today. And I'd never met any of these folks before Saturday afternoon, but it was immediate. It was hugs. It was, hey, how are you? Good to see you. And we keep talking about that, Texans helping Texans, and that spirit of not only the Hill Country, but the entire state really just kind of coming together to meet the need and to do what we can. And, even at the federal level, obviously that's what we're focusing on today with the president's visit here, but it's happening on neighborhood streets. It's happening in other spots along the river. It's happening, when we've interviewed some other folks who run different camps outside of Camp Mystic, which, bore the brunt of this as far as those 18 camps along the river go. They are a community, they are a family, and it's hard to explain how or why this this happened. It's just unbelievable.
You know, we've been seeing or hearing a lot from religious communities, obviously Camp Mystic, because that's a private Christian all-girls camp. But there are so many different ways that people have contributed in all of this. Adam was talking about, you know, some of his talents, and you were saying that, you know, if people are good at something, whether it's selling cookies and using those proceeds to donate to the relief effort, that's what people have been doing. And so a lot of people have been pitching in all sorts of ways. But from the religious community, I just have to state this, that, you know, their prayers are being heard and felt. There are so many people here who are holding on to that strength that they get from their spirituality and their faith. You know, when I went to the Walmart here in town in Kerrville, I spoke with somebody from the Salvation Army who was just praying for people. And so that's something that is also being offered to the people here. And you also have a lot of religious groups volunteering.
It looks like our photographer Sal panned over here to the top of this bridge behind us. Not sure, but certainly looks like that might be the President and First Lady on their way out. They held that round table, which is what our camera had been focusing on, but this is them leaving Kerrville. They haven't held the round table. Okay, so we're hearing from our production booth. They're on their way to the round table. So he will be here and the First Lady for a little while longer. But yeah, I mean, just of all of the first responder traffic that has been here, the media that has been here, the groups of volunteers that have been here, now the city of Kerrville looking at a presidential motorcade that you have to believe hardly anybody in this town would have thought they would have seen in their hill country city here.
And the president said earlier this week he would be here on Friday. And if you're wondering why it's taken a week, well, it's because he knows that there's so many resources that go to the president's security. And so the president flat out said that he wasn't going to be here so soon because he wanted to get out of the way so that searchers can do their jobs. And we know that the president is going to be here now that he got a tour of some of the devastation. He's going to go to that round table shortly, and then after that, he's going to leave.
We talked about all of the different groups that are coming out to help, and that has been really a privilege of ours, I think. And I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think that you would agree too, ours to be able to show what these groups are doing in a very grassroots way from the ground up. Our Gage Goulding, who is from KPRC, our sister station out of Houston, has been helping us out with our coverage, and he met one such group. Here's their story.
We've had crews coming and going, people.
The last time we talked with Diana Smith, she shared her incredible story of survival, riding out the flash flooding from the Guadalupe River on a kayak with her two dogs.
I said a prayer when I was standing on my porch. Both my parents are deceased, and I said, Mom, Dad, God, help.
Days later, finally starting the process to begin rebuilding. An entire workforce tearing apart her home in Hunt, quite literally trying to haul away any sign or memory of a flood, while helping her find those priceless memories.
This is from Heart of the Hills.
Despite feet of water, pictures from her days at camp just down the river, surviving. Meanwhile, nearly everything else in her home didn't.
Of course, this is a mud out operation.
Benny Williams leads a group of professionals, professional volunteers that is.
It's free. It was paid for by Jesus Christ.
Texans on Mission has 24 people working on 3 different homes here. On the workforce is a grandfather and grandson from the Houston area.
Well, the reason I really called you Grandpa is because I want you to come with me on this trip. And so I said, well, what can I do? I'm almost 90 years old.
But that isn't stopping him. They're working at Diana's neighbor's house.
And what's incredible about this house is once they were tearing out the walls, above every door frame, they found a Bible verse.
They're just godsends, all of them.
If that writing on the wall isn't a sign, well, I'm not sure what is.
KSAT joining you live in Kerrville as we continue our coverage into the devastating flooding here, where we have been really nonstop since 5 o'clock last Friday morning. A moment ago, we saw the President Trump's motorcade pass us over the bridge that's behind us. Shortly, he is going to be making comments at a roundtable discussion with other leaders so that that we can get a closer idea as to exactly how the president is going to support the people of the Hill Country who've been affected by this flood and sorely need that help. But, the president's visit just symbolically means a lot to the people here. It's a show of support that they need right now. And now is the time where these people cannot have too much support. There's no such thing. It doesn't exist. Our Dylan Collier is here in Kerrville, and he's been speaking to people who are looking forward, and they're very pleased that the president is here. What else are they telling you, Dylan?
Stephania, we are about 2 miles from where President Trump and other leaders will hold that roundtable discussion along the banks of the Guadalupe River. And as you can see, the destruction here in Kerrville is extreme. We've spent much of the morning and early afternoon with rescuers, people that have come from out of town, not even part of a formal search and rescue unit, just walking the banks of the Guadalupe, looking for any signs of victims, trying to do their part to contribute what they can. So a pretty incredible juxtaposition that just a couple miles from where the president is right now, you have people, we talked to a camp counselor, a person that had worked with children around the age of the victims from Camp Mystic. He drove in from Missouri City with just a pickaxe and a couple of other tools. He is spending the day walking up and down these banks, trying to do his part, using that axe to actually go through the root system of these massive trees that have been uprooted and honestly broken like, tiny sticks. So we've spent much of the day with those folks, and we'll bring you those stories at 5 and 6 o'clock, which is, I think an important thing to point out. When you're in Hunt and you're in Ingram and you're in those parts of the Hill Country, sort of where the storm began, you see a lot of orange X's. Texas game wardens use those to mark locations where they've gone through and searched the debris fields. Sometimes you'll see an orange question mark, which means let's come back around and make a second loop. You don't see that here along the stretch of the Guadalupe in Kerrville, and I think that's why a lot of searchers have come to this area, because based on what they've seen so far, this is a part of the search area that really hasn't been combed through, at least not yet. We've done a number of reports on that 80-mile stretch from the Hunt area all the way down to Canyon Lake. That is a massive search area on both sides of this river. So what you have here today are a lot of people that have come out on their own with just sort of rudimentary tools, trying to see if they can help search in any way.
Yeah, Dylan, thank you so much for your coverage throughout this last week and today as well. And you mentioned the guy just showing up with a pickaxe. I mean, people are just coming, just like that 90-year-old man we saw in Gage Goulding's story a moment ago, saying, well, what can I do? But people are finding a quick answer to that once they get here and figure out whatever it is that their talent is, whatever it is that they are able to contribute. That's happening here. And, everyone that I've talked to, I'm pretty sure everyone you've talked to, when we ask them how long are you going to be here, the answer is as long as I'm needed, as long as it takes. And we did hear earlier today the Kerr County Flood Relief Fund. That was a press conference that was had earlier today. Several different organizations contributing millions of dollars as part of that to help out the homes, the businesses especially, that were really damaged by all of this. The Lift Fund out of San Antonio, they do a lot for small businesses. And in that press conference, I remember a representative from their organization saying that, small businesses are the backbone of a community. Yeah. They are people's livelihoods. And so there is assistance, there is help in addition to FEMA coming in the form of just local donations that are topping $30 million at this point.
So separate from that, we have heard about a lot of different organizations, nonprofits, helping businesses, helping individuals. I spoke with the executive director of the Kerrville Chamber of Commerce